suddenly realized that they should get more political? If we're seeing abortion on television more than we have in the past, it's not simply because of competing right-left political agendas. The explanation is, I think, much less dramatic. In the continuously expanding post-network environment, every channel competes for ever smaller numbers of eyeballs. Viewers are conceptualized in increasingly narrow interest and demographic groups: suburban gardeners, Latino teens, foodies, animal lovers. For years, it was dangerous to represent abortion because the Christian right would immediately be on your back, pushing for a boycott or deluging the network with angry letters. But in the post-network era, it is increasingly difficult to successfully market a show as event TV. There's just too much noise for anyone to make much of a splash outside of a few blockbuster shows like American Idol and perennial special events like the Super Bowl. In other words, for a religious group to protest your show, they have to find it first. And this is increasingly difficult. Given that Galactica is anti-war, pro-choice, and insofar as it refuses to cave into moral absolutism, anti-fundamentalist, why have no conservative religious groups stepped forward to criticize the show? Galactica is not on one of the big networks, it's on the Sci-Fi Channel. It has not been a ratings blockbuster and has remained on the air in large part because it is critically acclaimed and has won a Peabody Award. Galactica has avoided a conservative backlash in part because, notwithstanding its cult status, relatively few people are aware of it. Also, science fiction is a genre stereotypically associated with young male nerds. Evangelicals took the time to acknowledge their disgust with Everwood, which was at least on the WB, targeting impressionable young minds. But the Sci-Fi Channel targets a small audience of viewers that many non-science fiction fans would simply dismiss as losers. Indeed, if someone told Focus on the Family's James Dobson that a show on the Sci-Fi Channel was feminist, pro-stem cell research, anti-rape, and pro-choice, he would probably respond not with his usual moral indignation, but by incredulously exclaiming, "The Sci-Fi Channel?" Clearly, Galactica is able to be aggressively political in large part because it's on a small cable channel with relatively low advertising revenue. The little media attention the show has garnered peaked in the fall of 2006 when Galactica showed the humans trying to survive on New Caprica, which several major newspapers noted was a stand-in for Iraq. What has gone less remarked about the show, though, is its representation of religion. Creator Ron Moore has envisioned a world in which both good guys and bad guys are strongly religious, and often unclear who's good and who's bad. Indeed, both sides are strongly invested in interpreting holy texts and applying them to both daily life and to long-reaching political decisions. Galactica has succeeded in showing the possibility of fervent belief separate from conservatism, extremism, or Catholicism, which for so long has been TV's safe, non-controversial religion. On Galactica, characters can be very religious without being politically conservative, a situation extremely rare on American television. Meanwhile, on the bigger networks, where the advertising stakes are higher, fervent belief remains largely restricted to Catholics and an occasional crazy fundamentalist abortion clinic bomber. Though Maude was able to resolve her dilemma some 30 years ago, television clearly remains highly conflicted about how to resolve the dilemma of representing religious belief and reproductive politics without offending advertisers or courting controversy. Thank you.
And low energy after Heather, so I'll just say that. I want to talk a little bit about some of the questions that emerged for me after thinking about these three papers, and then also talk about how they relate to some of the questions that I've been exploring in my own work. I need to come clean at the beginning and say that I am in the majority of people, like Heather, that Heather just mentioned, who does not watch the Sci-Fi Channel. I'm not a fan of Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if that means I should leave now, or that I've never seen that show. I've only watched Xena a couple of times. I have seen, I think, every episode of House, so I do have, that kind of credibility. But I do know something about gender and television, so that's what I'm going to discuss for the next couple of minutes. The different shows that are discussed here and their different television genres, sci-fi, drama, Maude is kind of a comedy drama that you talked about, Everwood is another kind of drama. They all deal with different aspects of gender identity as they're performed within a religious context. And one of the things that I think that all three papers made clear was that they also deal in some way with the messiness of gender and the way in which gender is kind of performed on an everyday level in mundane life, and how religion can be used as a particular kind of lens to explore some of this messiness, some of these contradictions. They all deal with different aspects of gender identity. So it's not just kind of what it means to be feminine, what it means to be a mother, and Anthea's paper, it's about the calling, what it means to have a calling. It also, and you talked some in this paper, but also in the other work, about the dichotomy of Madonna and whore. And Sheila's work, it's the redemptive work of Xena as Christ, what it means to kind of occupy a male subject position in that sense, in the sense of being Christ. Heather's paper, it's really about the results of sex, right? What happens and how you have to deal as a woman with things like pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, how television deals with that. So all of them have different aspects of gender identity that they kind of tap into and explore through the lens of religion. So religion, my comments are kind of broader comments about what that means. Religion provides a venue through which gendered identities can be troubled. Why? What is it about a religious frame or a religious allegory that allows for the dismantling, or as Sheila said in her paper, for the destabilization of gender identity? What do we need, or why do we need the material and the material formation of religion, the identity of religion, to open up questions of gender, to denaturalize power relations? I would say, just in thinking about this, that religion offers both the conditions of possibility for denaturalizing gendered identities, even as it simultaneously constrains and contains those very possibilities. The frame of religion, it seems to me, holds out the promise of transgression. Although, and you all know these shows better than I do, I'm not sure that that promise is realized. The promise of transgression, if it is about, you know, for example, Anthea, your work on Kara and Grace, it's the promise of transgression, and there are some boundaries that are transgressed, but there's also that framework of Madonna and whore that is so, you know, tragically familiar to us, right? And so I'm not sure the transgression is actually realized. Heather, in House, you talk about how the first two seasons, really, there were these incredible moments, you know, when the dialogue on that show really questioned things about gender and about identity and about religion, and then kind of closed down, right, and was domesticated in the later seasons and really kind of cleaned up its act in that sense. So the promise of transgression is there. I'm not sure how and in what ways it's realized. Gender, like I said earlier, gender is messy and it's contradictory, despite dominant discourses to the contrary that frame masculinity and femininity as naturalized, idealized concepts that are easy to understand, easy to read, and easy to decipher. Religion, I think, is also messy, also contradictory, despite its naturalized formation, despite the way in which it is seen to be something that allows one to decipher the world. So it makes sense that one would be a venue through which we can talk about the other. Again, though, one of my curiosities about this dynamic is why we need something else to talk about gender. Why it is that we need this discourse, this vocabulary, or this lexicon, religious lexicon, to parse out the contradictions and problematics within dominant constructions of gender. So is religion or religious allegory, is that a